Welcome back. So there are a few different types of deployment model. And what we're talking about here is which cloud services are you using? Are they ones inside your data center? Are they actually cloud services provided from some other company somewhere on the internet? Or are they a mixture of these different deployment models? So let's start with private cloud. So remember, we talked about this in the last lesson and I showed you some examples in terms of the service model, but private cloud is actually a deployment model. So in this case, you're deploying your infrastructure and applications into your own data center. You might use software like VMware, Microsoft, Red Hat, or OpenStack to create your private cloud in your own data center. Because remember, to be a cloud service, you need to use things like virtualization, you have to have metering and monitoring, you have to have various layers of software management, you have to have self-service and those kind of attributes to be a proper cloud service. We've then got public cloud. So in this case, you're consuming services that are provided by a third party and typically accessed over the internet, but you can also use private connections. So examples would be Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, you've got Google Cloud Platform, and there are others as well. Now, with a hybrid cloud, you're using a combination. So you might be using an on-premises private cloud, you might be using a public cloud service as well, and you'll do that because you have different applications that might be better suited to one model over another, or you might have some kind of regulations that mean that you need to keep some data in your own data center. We've then got something called multi-cloud, and multi-cloud basically just means that you're using two or more public clouds at a time, or possibly multiple private clouds. So you're picking and choosing not just which cloud models, private or public, but which cloud service providers you use based on your specific needs. So let's now look at the private cloud. So we looked at traditional IT, legacy IT earlier in the section, but you might add some layers of sophistication onto your internal managed infrastructure to make it a proper private cloud that has the attributes that we associate with cloud computing. So for example, you might have a virtualization cluster, so you've got lots of virtualized servers. You might add storage and backup capabilities. You might add network and firewall. And you would build and manage this deployment yourself because remember, this is private. Now to make this a proper cloud service, you then need some layers of software on top to provide the capabilities that your customers need or your internal employees or departments need. So you would need a self-service portal and a service catalog. You would need automation and configuration management, billing and reporting, and some kind of multi-tenancy capability. Maybe the tenants within your organization are different departments, for example. And there's more as well. This is just a snapshot of a few of the things that you would need. But to build a private cloud and to maintain a private cloud is no easy feat. It is quite a complex process, and it's definitely not a cheap one either. So you really need to have some good reasons for using your own private cloud. So that's the cloud management software layer sitting on top. And as I mentioned, there's more to it than that. There's quite a lot of components that you do need, and it does become quite complex when you build your own private cloud. So what are the benefits? Well, you've got complete control of the entire stack. Everything in here is up to you. You can design it the way you want. You can use specialized hardware. You can configure things certain ways. You might have your own developers developing certain capabilities that you can't have in the cloud. There's a lot. And then there's security. And this might depend on your organization and the regulatory requirements for your specific organization or the data that you're holding. So in some cases, you might actually not be able to run certain applications or store certain data in the cloud, in the public cloud. So you would then build your own private cloud. So let's move on to the public cloud. So in this case, the public cloud is here on the right-hand side. And on the left, we've got some organization with their corporate office. And you would be connected then over the internet or a private network link. And then you can quite easily deploy cloud services like compute and storage and network and database. And there's hundreds of cloud services available in AWS. So you've got a lot of scope for what services you can use, and you can use them very easily. They're available to you whenever you need them. So really the key advantages are, firstly, you've got a variable expense. So you're only paying for what you use. With the private cloud, you need to purchase all of that infrastructure. You often have to pay a lot of money up front for your software licenses. You've then got maintenance, and you've got a lot of staff wages to build and manage those systems. Whereas with the public cloud, you're paying a variable expense, not a capital expense. So you're paying what you use each month. You've also got massive economies of scale. And that literally means that AWS purchase huge amounts of compute and storage and network infrastructure. So because they buy so much, they get really good prices, and they can pass on a lot of those cost savings to the customers, which means they can lower their price, and it can often be very competitive. You've also got the massive elasticity. So remember, if your application needs to scale on Black Friday, for example, then you don't have to worry about having that capacity, and you don't need to purchase it up front. In the private cloud, you need to have enough compute infrastructure to handle those really busy periods. You need to pay for that infrastructure, and for a lot of the year, it might not be used very much. Whereas with the public cloud, you just use what you need to in those busy periods and then go back to using what you need in your sort of steady state situation on an ongoing basis. We then have the hybrid cloud. So with the hybrid cloud, you're using both types of cloud. You're using the private cloud and you're using the public cloud. And again, you might be connected over the internet or a private network link between those two different clouds. So the benefit really here is that you can keep certain applications in your on-premises environment. That might be for security, that might be for performance reasons, it could be for cost reasons as well. So you might have applications that are better suited to a private cloud environment. Other applications might be a much better fit for the public cloud, so you can put them there instead. You can also use certain things such as SaaS resources, IaaS, and the elasticity that you get in the public cloud, which is really hard to replicate in your own environment. And to have the scale of the public cloud is almost impossible. So, that's why you might find some definite advantages to using the public cloud for some applications. You also get a bit more flexibility. So when you're using multiple different cloud models, you can think about how you can quite easily move information around, move applications around. You have more services available to you and more choices for deployment. So every time you deploy a new application, you can then say, well, where does it better fit? Does it go in my private cloud that I've already built, or does it go in my public cloud? You also might be able to scale a private cloud-based application into the public cloud. So that's known as bursting, where you might run an application on premises, but whenever you need extra capacity, you just run extra instances of your application in the public cloud. So those are the different cloud deployment models available, and it really comes down to every individual organization to try and work out which models are best for them, and whether they go all in on one or whether they use a hybrid of different cloud deployment models. And that comes down to factors such as the performance requirements of your application, whether they're steady state or do they have particular periods where they burst and need lots of capacity, or are you a rapidly growing organization? All of these can have a bearing on which cloud deployment model is better for you, as well as regulations that you might have from your local government or the industry that you're in.